James with games.on.net, and we're here with Chris Roberts from CIG. Pleasure to have you.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here.
Fantastic.
Having a great time in Australia, PAX Australia. It's really great.
Fantastic, good to have you. So firstly, congrats on the enormous milestone. I think we're up to 59 million?
59.
59 million.
Yeah.
Wow, gosh,
It goes quick.
you guys very quick.
I think we may actually, we'll have to see. Don't know where we're at. We may hit 60 while we're here in Australia.
Well, that'd be a great milestone in Australia. Special milestone.
We got a big event tonight, so we're going to unveil the first-person shooter aspect, show a lot of the things that we're working on. It's super early because it's not going to be what the backers are going to get to play, which will be sort of towards the beginning of next year. But I think people will hopefully be really excited. I mean, I'm pretty excited. We're doing some stuff that's different than you normally do, and so that should be a big event tonight. It'll be fun. It's always great to spend time with everyone that's back the game, yeah, we're having a good time.
There'll be a bunch of fans from Australia.
Yeah, everyone's been great here. I mean, so we've already, yesterday there was a sort of fan-sponsored event by the Ultimanauts, which is one of the Star Citizen Australian groups, and they put it on just around the corner from the convention centre here, and that was awesome. People were showing up in marine outfits and RSI spacesuits, and giving me lots of beer. It's great. No, so the reception here is great. I mean, I think in Australia, it's people are real gamers here. They love it, and they love PCs too. And so I couldn't be happier.
That's it. Did you ever think it would get to this point? So, and on that same note, are you considering ramping down the number of testers or early access packages as the number starts to sort of reach a certain point?
Well, I didn't think that we would raise any. I had no. I mean, essentially, when I started the crowdfunding campaign, I was hoping to get 4 million and thinking that we should do at least 2, based on sort of where Wing Commander was popularity versus, say, the Graphic Adventures. Because my yardstick was Tim Schafer's Double Fine Adventure. So I didn't expect. I mean, I was expecting to raise a little bit of money there, which would sort of prove to the investors I'd already lined up that there was a demand, and sort of set the valuation for what they can invest into. Because I'd sort of done a deal with these investors to come in to allow me to build a much smaller, less ambitious version of Star Citizen than we're doing now. And my plan was always to take that, sort of get it to an alpha stage, and then via early access or kind of the Minecraft model, you get it out there and start adding features as more people join and play. But the crowdfunding campaign just at the beginning took off, and then it carried on going and sort of seemed to got momentum, and so there was a point we said we don't need the investors, which is great, because not the investors were necessarily bad or evil or anything, but right now the way it is, we're 100% funded by the backers, the game. Basically, people want to play this game, and so it's we want to make the best game, they want the best game made. There's no other agenda of like, oh, we need a profit in so many years, or I'd like to sell out to Microsoft or something, and then I'll be return on my investment. So it's I'm constantly shocked that as far as like ramping down the people testing numbers, I think we're not. I think we're going kind of the other way, which is we're almost like a live game now. So I mean, if you want to think about what people have. We deliver Star Citizen, the executable, and all the data, and it's the full bill. We just don't have everything turned on, and we keep adding stuff. And so, I'd like to think of what we give people in these modules as almost like Star Citizen v0.1 or something. And actually, it's really useful having a lot of people play it, because we can do things like get really wide and deep feedback, and also stress test. So in terms of the network performance, or trying on all the different machines and cards. Now, we've got hundreds of thousands of people playing it, so that's better than you can do in any focus group or test group. So I think we're sort of behaving now. We sort of treat it like we do an existing live game, even though we've still got lots and lots of stuff to be done. We sort of run live operations. We have like a team that supports the live stuff, and then we have teams doing development on the new stuff that's going to come inside. So we're actually behaving a lot less like a game that's in just development, and more like a game that's out there. We're not obviously polished or finished the way League of Legends or World of Tanks or World of Warcraft or anything like that is, but we do similar stuff where we're actually treating it as a live game out there, and while we're building it, and it's actually quite fun. It's fun to get that connection with the people playing the game and the feedback right away.
Fantastic. So many people are worried that Star Citizen could collapse under the weight of its own brevity. So are you concerned that its size and ambition could prove difficult to meet in the long run?
Not really. I mean, not really. I mean, I think there's plenty of people that say, well, if you only do half of the things you think you're going to do, then I'll be very happy. So my goal usually is, you really sort of push for it. And the other thing is, it's just a different beast than the old games I used to do, where you had to build in a finite time and put it on a disk and go to the stored shelves so you can't patch it. So yes, we've got all these different things we're doing, but we also have sort of core set of the gameplay that we're going to be delivering, and we're not holding up the gameplay. I mean, right now it's a nice example. You can go around a dogfighting space in the Arena Commander module. So we're delivering builds all the time. And so all we're going to do is we're just going to carry on delivering builds that have more and more functionality, over the rest of this year, next year, and it will all sort of build into the final version of Star Citizen, or version 1.0, because it's never really going to be finished. We're always going to be adding. So there's quite a few of the stretch goals we have that are super cool, but they're not going to be there for V 1.0 because they were promised a long time ago, and it'll take some time to do. But the advantage of the fact that we've got all this money is we can look people in the eye and say, yes, this will be in the game at some point.
Yeah. So you're still focusing on the initial promised features that were in the early stages of the
actually, if you go back and look at the campaign, the very early features were actually not really that much.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that much money yet. So what people see and think of the game now is a lot more of like where it has become after raising some money and all the stretch goals that we've talked about. And with the kind of support we get from the community, we're able to have a lot of people work on it. So we have about 280 people working on the game right now, which is a huge number of people. And that is enabling us to sort of go pretty wide on like a lot of the features. So I think what's going to happen with the level of support, assuming it stays up, is that we'll be also deliver much more of the big vision at the beginning rather than have to wait down the road for it. So I'm not particularly worried about not being able to deliver it. I mean, may not be able to deliver it all day one, may not deliver it all exactly the same soon. When I would like to have it delivered, maybe some things will take a little longer and all the rest, because that's the nature of development. But I'm not particularly worried about being able to deliver something that sort of hits all the things that we've talked about. And I think it's going to be an awesome game when that happens.
Sort of moving on that same sort of theme, how about feature creep? So without a publisher sort of second guessing you, do you have a third man situation inside CIG that suppresses some more outlandish ideas that someone may come up with and keeps things sort of running on track?
Well, I mean, so a lot of like what it is we run priorities on like what we think. The way I look at it is sort of like what's easy to do and what isn't easy to do. So sometimes there's some things that people think are like a sort of like crazy or complicated feature that are actually not that difficult to do because the system already supports it. So we have our base function, a base set that we want to deliver, and then there's sort of additional stuff that like we're looking at it and go, it's probably not that difficult to add a lot more PvE down the planet side to the first person combat. We already have a first person engine, we already have the counter templates, we already have all the systems for it, because partly it comes from all the crisis and crash and stuff, and partly it's from what we have to write for other things. And so we're like, that's probably something we can do to sort of make down on planets be more than just walk into a store and buy something or go into a bar and get a mission. Some people may go, that's a whole new thing, but it's like we know we've got all the components there, so we're like, why not? So it's hard. I mean, we have our timeline and schedules. So we've got a pretty big production group now. I mean, one of the big things that's happened with us is we've grown a lot, right? So when I first started, I went to the original crowdfunding. There wasn't any in the office. It was me. I had a few people that I'd like banded together to help, sort of work on the prototype, and we sort of ad hoc, like we built our own sort of, low down site in WordPress, and put a little plugin to do some crowdfunding. And it was, compared to what we do now, it was pretty low rent. And then, the first year we sort of, were trying to hire up, but even when we released the Hangar, which was in August of 2013, we didn't really have that many. Probably on staff we had 30 or 40 people tops. So now we've got 280 people. So we've really done a lot. So part of what we've done is trying to figure out how to run the different studios, because the different studios focus on different aspects of the game. So we do a lot of stuff in parallel. It's kind of like multi-core processing. Like the studio works on FPS, the studio's working on single player. The Squadron 42 game, the studio's working on the space, the studio's working on the client side. And that's all come together. And so we've got a fairly big production department now, headed up by Alex Mabry, who's an executive producer of the project, who joined us from Blizzard. So we do a fair amount of coordination and planning with that, and we have roadmaps for all the features and when they go online. So basically, if you suddenly want to do something, it's sort of a zero-sum game. It's like, okay, you're going to add this feature, it's going to push something back. So we have sort of our timelines when we want to deliver stuff by. So there is some level of, I guess, self-policing that happens because of that. But the way I look at it, again, like I said, is if there's a cool feature that we think is fairly easy to do, then I would like to do it, but it doesn't mean it's going to be 1.0. And so that's where I don't think feature creep's a problem when you keep adding features and it prevents you from releasing. Right? So because we're always live and always releasing, we're not prevented from releasing. It's just a matter of we're saying, we're going to do that, but we're not saying, okay, we're not going to give you the game until we've done that. And so that's kind of the standard response I have with feature creep. And a lot of the stuff that we've talked about from the beginning that we're doing now, it's more or less the same stuff. It's just that the difference with the funding and the increased size of the team is we can just do it with like more fidelity, so more detail. But on a technological standpoint, we're not really doing that much different than what we were originally going to do.
Great. Okay. So you've mentioned many times that in responses to questions and on forums and things like that the game won't be pay to win. But there are a number of ways planned to sort of purchase ships and equipment with real money. So how will CIG prevent the game from becoming lopsided? And sort of as a follow-up to that question, is there a transition plan in place to move from the crowdfunding system to more of like a regular buying the game system?
Well, I mean, the actual the model that I intend to use for the game, which I don't know whether it's, we'll see whether it works, but I think it will, is sort of more like Guild Wars 2, which is basically you buy your initial package, and then you don't have to pay a subscription, you can play, and everything, and that's kind of the game. Everything in the game, there's nothing you can only buy with money, you can earn everything in the game, and then people can buy some credits with some money if they, because there's plenty of people that don't have that much time, but they have some money, and there's people that have lots of time and no money. So the idea would be that, okay, well, I'm the father of 3 that likes the game for a few hours on the weekend, doesn't mind spending, $5 or $10 on some credits because he wants to get that shiny new spaceship and doesn't want to put the 30 hours in of like going and doing combat missions to be able to earn it. And so that's kind of the model. I think it will generate enough revenue to keep the game and the servers up and those carry on generating content. Now, as far as it being pay to win, it's a skill-based game. So we've okay. So if you have a custom dogfighting ship and you're going against the base ship, you've definitely in those situations if a pilot equals skill, the custom dogfighting ship should win, but that's real life. But if there's a better pilot, say in the starter ship and not a very good pilot in the custom dogfighting one, then probably the better pilot is going to win. So skill is already in there. The other thing is my definition for pay to win is when you get something you can only get via money, right? So the way I look at it, I always find the arguments kind of a bit, let me put it this way. I generally find that people that say, I don't like pay to win, are people that have a lot of another resource, which is lots of time. So I think people have time or they have money. And as long as neither one of those people have an advantage over the other one, then I'm perfectly fine with it. So what I don't like is a game that says you can only get this super weapon if you pay for it in dollars, and you can play 100 hours and you'll never get the super weapon. You have to pay for it. So I hate that. So the way Star Citizen works, or will work, is that you can earn everything in the game. And in fact, there'll be plenty of stuff that you can only earn in a game. You will not be able to purchase. But if you want to, buy some credits, then you'll sort of have some more credits you can buy on some stuff if you just don't have the time to be spending the 30, 40 hours. Because it's all resource-based stuff. I mean, otherwise, the person that has me, because that's like, I can make other arguments on the pay to win, because it would be like, well, okay, what about this guy that's got 30 hours a week to play the game, and this poor guy's only got 2 hours a week? Well, that 2 hour a week guy is now disadvantaged because this guy's putting 30 hours a week into a game, and he's much further along. I mean, you're always going to have those situations in games. So, my golden rule is it's not pay to win as long as you can earn everything in game. You don't get any unfair advantage from anything. You can only buy with one kind of resource. And so that's kind of the concept of it. That's not necessarily everyone else's definition of pay to win, but that is mine. It's the one that I sort of feel from, if I'm a gamer, that would be what I would feel fair. So I don't like, I play free-to-play games and I have to buy, they force me to buy certain things, I hate it. If I have the option to earn it in game or accelerate and spend money, then I'm fine with it. So that's kind of what we
no golden guns or anything like that.
No golden guns. No, I mean, because you should, ultimately, if you've got the time, play the game, because first of all, you'll be a better player, you'll have more practice, but second of all, that's what the game's about. It's not like, this isn't grinding to, like there's, you can see in MMOs where there's some level of grinding where you go and kill 452 rats before you can level up. This is, like you're flying the missions that you'd be flying, saying something like a privateer in the old days, and that was the core game mechanic, that was the fun stuff. So flying missions, earning money should be fun. It's not like you'll be doing boring stuff. It's just whether you've got the time to, do enough of that to earn whatever the shiny ship you want to buy. That's kind of sort of up to, what a person's available time is and kind of what they're, what they view as a more valuable commodity for them is time versus money. So that's the model. I hope it works. I think it's the fairest model in my mind, and I really hope it's enough to make sure that the game is viable once we've launched. But we'll see. We never know. I'm not like any kind of rocket science on this. I didn't do any studies to say that's the optimal way. I just if I was a gamer, that's what I would like. So that's what I picked.
Fantastic. So on a personal note, what are you most excited about in Star Citizen? So what is your pet project within the enormous set of features? And are there any elements you feel that you might not be able to include in your current development, just based on your current development experience with the engine? So something you may have said, well, we might want to do this, but you've sort of been working on the engine and the gaming limitations. You think this may not be something we could include.
Okay, so the thing that I'm most excited about is the multi-crew ship, which is sort of essentially, and especially doing that with friends. So the bigger ships, right now Arena Commander you fly pretty much the single-seater ships. But Arena Commander 2.0, we're going to sort of debut the multi-crew ships. But for me, a lot of like Star Citizen is about the bigger ships. Sort of I've got the Millennium Falcon. I mean that's not the Millennium Falcon, but the idea that you and some of your friends are flying it, someone's piloting it, someone's in the turret, someone's fixing the engine. So that level of sort of cooperative play, I think is going to be great. And we have some much bigger ships than say the Constellation that have a lot more of that. So I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing the dynamic of friends or groups of people operating bigger ships together, because it's going to open up a whole level of gameplay that you just don't typically see in a space set. So that's the thing that I'm most excited. That's what we're sort of focusing on the development side right now. So we're building that. We need it for Squadron 42. We need it for the next sort of big move forward on the space combat and the Arena Commander stuff. That's going to be super cool. And then there's a whole other level because you can EVA in and out of your ship, or people can try and board you and take it over. So that hasn't really been done. And so that for me is sort of like one of the big promises. Technology-wise, I think the biggest challenge for us is getting as many players into one area as possible. Our ships are incredibly detailed and heavy. So besides just the issue with network optimization and so much data going back and forth, just rendering ships of this detail and having too many was a problem. So that's kind of what we're using Arena Commander for, is sort of the how far can we push it, how many players we get an instance. Of course you would like to have 1,000 instances, but it's not likely, but much more like probably a Battlefield where you can have 50 or 60 in an instance. We're hoping to maybe try and push it to 100, so we'll see. So that's part of what we're doing. So that's one of the areas that I would love to push that as much as possible. We have ways that we sort of dynamically put people in and out of instances. So as you travel through the universe, unless you and 100 of your buddies or 200 of your buddies say let's show up in the same spot, you won't really feel that you're limited in numbers. You sort of go as you fly along. People will sort of stream into your area of space and go out, and it'll just seem like people are coming and going and flying around. So I think we'll be able to sort of hide a lot of those limitations. The other big technical thing we're doing, although I don't really think it's a risk, it's just taking time, is we're moving the engine to 64-bit from 32-bit, and that's a huge move. Like pretty much all engines are at 32-bit floating point. But our problem, and that's fine for first-person game because usually your play areas are several kilometers in size. But we're flying in space, and you can fly thousands, millions of kilometers quite easily. And so 32-bit just doesn't have the precision to hold like the detail you need in the cockpit within a meter, and then also have millions and millions of kilometers in a star system. So we're moving to 64-bit, so that's been ongoing for the last few months, and it'll still take a bit longer. And that's a big thing because there's like about 10 million lines of code sitting in the CryEngine, and so you touch a lot of it while you're doing that. So I'd say those are sort of the two big technical stuff. Longer term, we're playing around with some procedural stuff. I don't really see that as a risk. It's just we're sort of doing research on what aspects of procedural we can use to help us out. So we actually already use like a lot of sort of procedural and system-based stuff in the game. But one of the things that we would use procedural generation for is sort of not necessarily just like creating it without you touching it, which is sort of the No Man's Sky model, but more for making it much quicker for like a designer to create a system. Like he can put some data in and the system gets auto-generated, and then he goes and says, oh, you know what, I want to do something over here, and the asteroid field slightly over here. So just to make content creation quicker. So those are what we're working on, but that's more sort of an R&D thing.
Fantastic, great. I want to know, personally I want to know heaps more about the development process, but we have a few more questions, so I'll just sort of press on. Can you visualize the entire scope of the project? So can you see the full itinerary of players traveling from their hangar to a bar on the edge of the galaxy with all the hops and skips along the way, and how that's going to actually process? Like, can you see the whole scope of that?
Can I see it, or do you want me to tell you how it works?
Yeah. Probably a bit of both.
No, definitely. No, we spent a lot. I mean, when I was first putting the plan together for this, I spent a lot of time about how I was going to set it up, and that was kind of where I was talking about the instance side stuff. But basically, what would happen is you'd start down on the planet, maybe in your hangar, you'd go out. Depending if you didn't want to fly a mission right away, you'd go out through the door and you're walking around that sort of area of the town and city, and you could go into various kinds of stores, whether it's a store selling ships or weapons for ships, or there's stores selling stuff for your personal like clothes or hand weapons or all that. So you can sort of buy and sell stuff. You can go to places that will fix up your ship. You can buy cargo to take to other planets, and you can also like go into a bar or go up on the mission board and sort of look for work. So you can go and get a mission to go and whatever it is, take this 5 tons of cargo from the planet you're on to another planet, or fly escort for a cargo ship, or hunt down a notorious pirate. So you basically spend a bit of time to make sure that your ship's set up the way you want, whether you find what it is, or you upgrade it, or buy some stuff, get a job or a mission, and then you go back into your hangar, so I'm ready to fly off. And so then we would transition that your ship would go up to sort of like one of the launching landing pads, and then you're in the ship, it's in real time. So we're not having any loading screens in the game. What we do is we sort of have these transition points, so you don't manually fly takeoff, you don't manually land. So what happens is you engage sort of the auto takeoff, and you'll sit inside your ship, you can get out of your seat, walk around, look out the windows as you take off, but you'll take out of this incredibly detailed 3D city and start to head up into the atmosphere. And we sort of showed a version of this reverse landing the other way.
Yeah, I noticed that on the stream the other day.
Right, exactly. So then you'll as we're going, you're in the ship. What happens is, as you go through some transition points like clouds streaming past, we're actually streaming, well, basically dumping the old data and streaming in what will be like in orbit. So as you transition through the clouds, all of a sudden the clouds break. I mean, you can kind of see this effect on No Man's Sky. They have it too, where we transition in and out of planets for like fog or cloud. So you break out, and then now you're in orbit, and you can see the planet you just came from. Below you, there's other ships moving around, and now you're in orbit. And if you say got a mission to say take this cargo to say another planet in the system, then you would go into your navigation map and you would set, okay, here's my destination, and you would engage your quantum drive, which is sort of like our fast travel. And then again, what would happen there is, you would have sort of, think of a Star Wars style effect of stuff streaking by. And while that's happening, again, that's what we're using to hide that we're basically streaming out the planet you're in and streaming it where you're going to arrive. And a lot of times you can, if you're going from this place to this other planet, along the way, if there's a pirate sitting there, or there's an asteroid field, or some celestial object that blocks your way, you'll get pulled out of warp. So what happens is it goes, okay, well, there's a couple of pirates in this asteroid field, so I'm going to pull my ship out of warp. And so what's happening is I'm sort of in the warp mode, and I can look around, see stuff going through outside my windows, and then when it's loaded up, the place where you can get pulled out of warp, and the enemies and stuff, you come out of warp, and then you see the enemy contacts, and then you either have to try and evade them, or if they come out and start attacking you, destroy them. But once you get far enough away from them, or they're destroyed, then you can go back into warp and you carry on. And so that could happen. You could not be pulled out of warp, or you could be pulled out of warp 4 or 5 times. So you basically work your way to get to your destination. You get to your destination planet. You ask for landing permission, and then we sort of do the reverse of the takeoff I've described. You go into the auto landing mode. Again, no loading screens, but we sort of handle it as you go down. Use some transition points where we're dumping the old environment and loading the new one. You land down, then you can get out just like you could on the landing demo that we showed in CitizenCon. You walk out, you can collect your payment for delivering your goods, look to buy or sell stuff on the planet, look for new missions, maybe get engaged in sort of more story-based missions. And sort of you kind of do that, you can rinse and repeat. And there's a lot of stuff you can do out in space. You can go and mine asteroids, you can go and start charting stuff, looking for jump points. So there's a huge amount of different roles and stuff you can. But that's essentially the mechanic. And when you sort of go to these different areas, like when you're on the planet or you're in orbit, you get pulled out. Each one of those areas, when you get sort of come into sort of the live gameplay, that's what we call an instance. So that's the place where, that's where, whether it's 50, it could be maximum of 50 ships or maximum 100 ships, we don't know. But so you're sort of getting dynamically put between these different instances, and the game itself runs rules. So like if there is, for instance, like you land on our own planet, there's really 1,000 people in orbit around the planet. You can't really show 1,000 people. So then what the game goes, okay, you're arriving in orbit around this planet, and it has a whole matchmaking criteria. It goes, okay, well, you're in this organization, so why don't we put some people that you would know or friendly to you because we see them in space. So we're going to put you in an instance with them. And so you sort of have matchmaking based on who your friends are, who your enemies are, who you've designated people of interest. And matchmaking is also based on whether you said, oh yeah, I like PvP or I prefer PvE. So we would tend to sort of match people up that kind of have some similar interests. So like if you're in the safe area, you're not always getting put in with people who want to do PvP. On the border worlds, then there isn't really any, you're not going to need protection from that. But on the interior. So what should happen is you travel between these different points. You'll just see other ships there, and you won't really feel that there was this overall limitation, because it's not like you only can ever see 50 people in your universe ever. It's like you can only see 50 or 100 people at any one time, in any one instance. But you're always dropping in and out of instances, because every time you transition to areas in the way I've described, you're going into a new instance. And so that's what Arena Commander does for us. Arena Commander is actually a sort of static version of one of those instances, and we're using it to prototype all the instance and how many ships we can get in an area and everything else. But the game server that runs the Arena Commander combat zone is basically the instance server that will be in the final game.
Fantastic. So on that same sort of question, how are you looking to handle immersion? So you mentioned about the transitions. So traditional methods of like speeding up time and creating atmosphere and flooding was by introducing cutscenes. So I think there was one in that stream where you're sort of coming down onto the planet in between the transition stages. Are you looking to how are you looking to sort of handle the wide universe, and how would those things affect the experience of immersion, and how would that sort of come into play with VR?
Well, we need, in terms of, so we definitely are going to have some places where you would have time dilation, right? So landing and taking off, for example. But the key is you need to make it the same for all players, right? So you can't have someone just like, so like for instance, an example is a quantum drive. What I would decide is 0.2 speed of light right now. If it takes you, I don't know, 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes to go from one side of the system to the other side of the system, it will always be 20 or 30 minutes for everybody.
Yeah.
Because it has to be, or else you can get there faster than I could. We kind of have fixed rules for the persistent universe that will allow you to, okay, I can do my sort of time dilation, the warp thing, but no one can do it. If it's 5 minutes to go from here to here, it's 5 minutes for everybody. So it's sort of I guess if there is sort of the cutscenes that accelerate things, they're sort of pegged to be the same for everybody. If that makes sense. If you got a faster machine, if you got an SSD and you load in a new area, you're going to quicker than someone has an HD. Doesn't mean that it drops you out in a new area quicker. It probably just sort of like carry on in the state where you're going to quantum drive, but it already brought in the new area, so it's fine. But it needs to play out in 5 minutes. It's going to take you to get from A to B. And that's one of the big differences between a multiplayer sort of MMO style thing and a single player. In a single player, you can just say, okay, quicker scene, and you get there quicker. But in this way, you've got to sort of enforce some kind of global timescale.
Your Death of a Spaceman concept has been lauded as a great solution to a tough problem. So my question is, what consequences are in place for those who don't appreciate the loss of a soul? And are there any fees, delays, or insurance issues in place when moving to a next of kin?
Well, I don't think there's any sort of delays or issues. I mean, for me, the way I looked at it was, I sort of feel like you'll have an association and a fondness to your character, so you probably don't want to have them just get killed every 2 seconds, and everyone's it's just like this particular family seems to not last very long. There's always, there's a certain level of, there's things like if your character gets killed, is notorious, then the person who gets passed on to doesn't inherit all the notoriety, right? So you at some level you can sort of kind of correct as soon as you father. If you care about that. I think there may or may not be some kind of like estate tax. We haven't really made a decision about that. That would be one way to put a bit of a penalty in, so you try not to get killed too often. But those are all still things that we're playing with. But what I really like about the idea is the sense that you've got a sense of time passing, right? And that people can make a legacy. So we're definitely creating areas where you can discover a jump point or defeat like a big boss pirate. And that's something that you own. It's not something that every player can do. There's only, obviously, Shadow of Mordor actually did a pretty good job with its nemesis system. But think of that kind of like with pirates or something, where you have like a whole setup to create sort of names, and you sort of diagram these pirate bosses. There's only one pirate boss in this one particular area. Only one pirate killer, but when he kills them, obviously another pirate rights things place, a new name, whatever. But then people can own that. That's their like achievement. So it's when you pass on, you're known as the person that's killed the Dread Pirate Roberts. And that's I think having this sense of like legacy of things that can be on your tombstone. I'm really hoping that people sort of take great pride in sort of a family line. It's like you kind of get in the real world, right? It's a family that's like 4 generations, or like when the war went in the army. Whatever, famous general, whatever it would be, or they're shipping magnet, and they carry on from father to son, or mother to daughter, or whatever. So that's kind of the concept of the Death of the Spaceman. So what we're kind of doing is sort of making it a little. I don't want to make it so you can just die and instantly respawn in the same place. So when you die, it's almost like you're using up these lives, and you only have so many lives, which is when they sort of bring you back. Maybe you only percent or whatever, but after that your body just goes down. And so after those lives are used up, then pass on the next again. And hopefully that's going to give the world a sense of time and things moving on, and be more immersive. And people value what they build on.
And so with the Nemesis system, it's actually a really good example. So would you be using that same sort of system for enemies? So for example, you mentioned only one person can kill X pirate. Will the whole game sort of reflect that decision? So if you kill a very important, generally important pirate faction, will that whole faction sort of become fairly weak or muted for a period of time until someone's elevated into that?
Probably, yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, the idea is that, you know, so we're sort of going for this thing where it's not a theme park where everyone can go into the castle and kill the evil baron, right? The idea is that, you know, killing one of the say big boss NPCs is a pretty big deal, and so it should be something that the players aspire to.
Yeah.
And you know, the one that does kind of gets it is like, you know, it's like, wow, okay, you did that. And so that's sort of the idea of the focus. Not because not everyone can be, you know, the hero of the story. But when you do, you manage to do something special, and you're pretty proud of it. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. I mean, the different, you know, so factions and groups, they're all sort of. We have what we call we have this sort of economy and meta AI simulation that happens on a separate server, and that's really more like a 4x slower paced game of simulation, but that informs what happens in sort of the more specific you flying around stuff. So that's driving what sort of you know, people you would see in what area of space, what state you know, a different planet-side environment is, and what the hot commodity is, and so all that's sort of driven by the economy and sort of meta AI simulation, and that sort of informs when you jump into areas. It goes, okay, well, you know, there's a 30% chance that we pirates based on what's being simulated in the economy simulation.
Great. So just moving to a different sort of style question. The scope and scale of planets and systems are a big part of making the environment believable and immersive. So can you tell us any new information on how this is coming along? And will certain planets have the ability to be terraformed or claimed or named by people?
Well, we're still in sort of the early process. We sort of worked out. We have a method of building like environments fairly quickly, which we call sort of the tier system, where you sort of build modular pieces. And we've also we've sort of broken down the architecture. Like, so for me, like one big thing with like sci-fi games is a lot of times you see designs of like a sci-fi city, and it was drawn by an artist. It was all drawn like it was like, you know, designed all at the same time. So, you know, I'd say things like Mass Effect is kind of, you know, has that sort of feel. Whereas if you actually look at a real city, you know, buildings and, you know, even 10 or 20 years different, they have a different style. And so one way that you can sort of feel the age of a city is, you know, you go there and there's like old buildings and newer ones, and you sort of, that's almost, think of it as almost like rings on a tree, you know, tree trunk, where you can sort of see how big it is, right? So we've actually come up with, I can't remember whether there's 9 styles of different kinds of architecture from different eras that we've sort of mapped out. And we're building the tiers for that, and so like if it was an older city, then you would have bits of architecture from all the different times, whereas the newer one would be just from one of the more recent ones. I think that's going to be pretty cool, but using the modular stuff, it allows people to put stuff together quicker, because we're sort of looking at the city stuff almost like a, you know, kind of a sort of meta sim city that happens with the cities that are driven by what happens from the economy. But then you can sort of walk around in first person. In terms of sort of discovering new planets and terraforming, you know, we had the stretch goal for some of the procedural R&D, and so that's kind of what I'm interested in. Procedural R&D is sort of using some of the kind of, you know, whether it's voxel tech or something, where we can sort of create, you know, worlds that are, you know, not necessarily the whole world that you're going to go in, but like areas that you could land, that you could do some exploration. And it can be more sort of randomly generated or procedurally generated, sort of think almost like a you know, random dungeon generator, like you'd have for a Diablo or something. And so that would be kind of cool to have areas that you could, you know, go and explore, and maybe there was some ancient ruins, or maybe you get jumped by some grave robbers, or jumped by some crazy alien creature, or, you know, there's a sort of potential colony, and then part of the gameplay would be like flying in the raw materials and you know, equipment you would need to put up at like a small mining colony, and then over time you fly in more stuff and it builds up to a town.
You possibly make profit from.
So we are. So like all the economic nodes, right, that are manufacturing things, because everything in our economy is it's a closed system. So all the ships you'll buy, all the weapons you'll buy, that all has to be manufactured inside the economy. We just don't auto-generate it. Like, you know, a lot of MMOs, you kill some orcs and they magically just, you know, spew a bunch of weapons or armor or gems, which is just adding money to the system's inflation. For us, you know, we have all, you know, there's places that generate resources. The resources get refined and they get put into, you know, making things, whether like say ships, missiles, whatever it is. And so if there's an area in space and there's a huge amount of like combat happening there, and you go to the store, they could run out of missiles, or they could run out of ship replacements for you until they come in from another system. So we're kind of trying to sort of have these sort of real world implications for consumption and what's happening. So, an example of the economic nodes I was saying is that, like, if you're doing well and there's just a lot of combat happening and you can't keep missiles in stock, well, maybe that factory says, okay, well, I'm going to put an order out. I need a new missile making machine, and so that equipment gets flying in, and now instead of needing 10 tons of material to build missiles, they need 15 tons, but now they're going to put out 150% of what they did before. So those are all things that the player can get involved with on his side to do, help fly the equipment in, do all the rest of stuff. So that's the sort of an example of how the economy would drive missions for people, and then it would have an effect back on the economy because now more missiles are getting done. And of course, the inverse would be true, is if all of a sudden no one has demand for missiles in that system, there's a bunch of missiles sitting on the show floor and not storing it, then all of a sudden that factory may start to decide, well, I'm going to lay off some people or whatever, and then the crime will sort of start to rise. It doesn't matter what's there as it goes through.
I know we're running out of time, so I've only got a couple more questions to go.
Yeah, no problem.
Again, sort of similar on that same vein, can you tell us more about the exploration portion of the game? So, particularly around things like jump points, will they always be marked, and can secret ones be located? So, and on that same sort of note, will there be an Eve-style system around wormholes, so where you can, like, you're currently Eve, you can go into a wormhole and kind of live there, because it's a small temporary base?
For us, so all the jump points aren't necessarily going to mark them. In fact, when we go live, we're going to have some jump points that will be there to be discovered by players. So when you first discover a jump point, you'll need certain kinds of scanners. There are different kinds of jump points / wormholes for different size ships. So some that would support much bigger ships, some that would only support a smaller ship. And if it hasn't been charted before, you need to chart it, and that's actually quite risky when you're flying it. So sort of it'd be like the concept is sort of riding like a really big breaker and making sure that you hit the apex of the wave and not getting wiped out. So that would be the idea, and once you've done that successfully, then your nav computer's recorded your moves, and then you can just repeat it, or you can actually sell that information to someone else. So that's how someone would sort of navigate a jump point, and then they could, like I said, sell it to someone else and just use it for them. Whether or not, I don't think we're going to let you live inside the sort of wormhole jump points, but you'll definitely exist inside it while you're flying it. So that there'll be even like the same, because the jump point wormhole is kind of going to be like the warp quantum drive space, where when you go in it, you're flying through, and you've probably got a pre-recorded path. But as all that's happening, of course, we're dumping the old system out and streaming in the new system. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for people to sort of find and chart those and jump them. And other stuff for explorers. I mean, explorers can also, a lot of the star systems, only the key points are mapped, so you can go off map, so to speak, and find like an asteroid field that wasn't on the map that has a deep seam of really valuable minerals, and then you can sort of claim that with the UE and have the mining rights to it, do all that kind of stuff. That'd be pretty cool.
So when you see something new on a map, does that just update your own map, not like a global map, or can you just...
No, when you see something on your own map, you map it and it's on your map. Now you can share that with your friends, you can sell it to the UEE, and then it would sort of get updated in all the global maps. But it's sort of up to the players to decide whether they want to map the stuff and whether they want to share it or not.
Fantastic. All right, and can you tell us a little bit more about alien races and their place in the universe? So we've got a few little bits and testing tidbits. Recently in the trial for the Cutlass, there was the
Vandal.
The Vandal, yeah, that's right. So what sort of role do they play?
Well, I mean, the core of our universe is the United Empire of Earth, which is sort of like, at one point it was the United Nations, and it became the United Planets, and then eventually it was sort of taken over to be sort of more of a, think of it like how Caesar, how it got co-opted into emperors in Rome. And then the alien races, to the south of the UEE is the Banu Protectorate, and they're sort of the space trading aliens. To the east is the Zhan Empire, which is analogous. If you think of the UEE as being sort of the Roman Empire in antiquity, and it's kind of around the sort of decline and fall of the Roman Empire. So the two power bases in the UEE is Earth, which is the historical capital and still the seat of the government, and then Terra, which is on the far eastern side of the galaxy, and it's a much bigger planet. It's got a lot more jump points, and it's much better for trading. So think of that as almost like Constantinople. And so there's some tension between the eastern and the western side of the empire. And ultimately, the plan is once the game's live that there may be a split like there was in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
But on the eastern side is the Zhao Empire. The eastern part of the empire tends to trade with them, but they're analogous to the Chinese or the Persians of antiquity. They're slightly inscrutable. We do business with them, but we don't really trust them.
Yeah.
They don't trust us. We don't quite know what their motives are. And then on the western side of the empire is the Vandal, who we saw in the Cutlass commercial, and they're sort of analogous to the Visigoths or the Vandals of antiquity, the Roman Empire. And they're always raiding and foraging into UAE space, and UAE sort of at a constant state of war with them. So much like Rome was at war with the Germanic tribes, and that's kind of who the Vandal are. And so Squadron 42 is based, is pretty much about a campaign battle of the Vandal.
All right, so this is I've got about 7 people ask me this question to ask you. What happens if you die? So it gives like a George R.R. Martin style system in place to continue on with the game. It's obviously a pretty morbid question, but I was asked this by a fairly large amount of people when I was sort of hunting
well, I hope I don't die.
No.
I think there's a pretty large group of. It's not me doing all this. There's a large group of pretty talented developers, and we've got a pretty well thought out game plan. So I think it would continue on. I would hope it would. But I hope I never have to. Not that I would see that point because I would be dead then, wouldn't I? I think it's on anything this big, it's not just one person. So yes, I'm guiding it and it's informed by my sensibilities, but there's a lot of other people that are making the game happen and designing a lot of it. So I think it would carry on. Freelancer isn't necessarily the final game that I wanted when I was it, but that was something I started but I didn't finish.
Yeah.
A lot of people still think that's pretty decent.
Yeah, fantastic. And finally, I know this is way down the track, so 5-6 years down the track, have you ever speculated as to what you want to do next? Like, have you thought about other projects?
Honestly, Star Citizen is like, it's all encompassing. It's so big, it's such a big galaxy, just creating stories and building inside it sort of is what I'm looking at for the near foreseeable future. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to ship this thing and then go off and do another game in a year's time. I'm sort of figured that I'm locked into Star Citizen for quite a while. And it's a lot of fun. There's so much we've done in this universe and so many stories that can be told. I think longer term we'll have plans to sort of go beyond just the game itself. I definitely could see that you could have stories set in it, whether who knows, TV series or episodes or new single player campaigns. You get to play alien races, expand their new areas of the galaxy. There's the universe is your oyster, so to speak.
Sky's the limit.
The
sky's the limit, that's right. Alright, well thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone else appreciated it as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, guys.